Peace, party people. This is episode 43 of Where My Killer Tape At. Man, we got a lot of ground to cover. We're going to hit you up with a lot of stuff. Definitely check out the show notes at the end of the show. We're going to talk about the nationwide prison strike, which began on August 21st. We're going to talk about issue 1 in the state of Ohio. We're going to talk about Ariana Grande and that bishop whose name I cannot remember. We're definitely going to talk about the born day of Jack Kirby. We're going to talk about Aretha Franklin just a little bit. But we cover everything over here, whether it's geek stuff, prison industrial complex, education. But definitely, we're going to have the segments for health and how to approach women. So check it out. Where my killer tape at? Rock, steady, rock, steady, rock, rock, rock. Steady, 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 steady.
Gangsta, 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 gangsta. As for you profess it, make sure the science is applied. But then who, what, when? Sometimes
I pull up, hop out, air out, made it look sexy. They won't take me out my element. Nah, take me out my element.
For episode 43 of Where My Killer Tape At, I'm sipping on some Wild Ohio Brewing. That's the name of the company, Wild Ohio Brewing. Black cherry bourbon tea beer. Oh my God, it's delicious. Oh my God. Shout out to the homie PJ. She introduced me to this, man. For real. Big time. And actually, she got this at Target. So it's at Target. I seen it in there. Once again, it's from Wild Ohio Brewing. Shout out to my folks from the big O. Black cherry bourbon tea beer. It's actually really sweet. It's not like a wine cooler sweet, but it is like the tea. It's tea sweet. It's like tea sweet. And the beer is not like overcoming. So for those of you that don't like to taste the beer, this is probably right up your alley. And that's what we're doing for Where My Killer Tape At. Word. Shout out to the homie Darshil because she hit me to this. I wasn't even up on it, and I thought I was. I'm all about voting. In the state of Ohio for November on the ballot is going to be issue 1. It's an amendment to the Ohio Constitution. This is really dope. If it passes, it will reduce nonviolent drug possession felonies to misdemeanors. It will stop the probation to prison pipeline. So it will prevent prison sentences for violations that are not new criminal offenses. So if you don't commit a new crime, you can't go back to prison. And that's like stuff like if you are late to your PO, to see your PO, you know, if you're not where you're supposed to be, if you're like late for work, they like to violate people and put them back in there. Offer more earned time off sentences for positive programming. So, and this is something that I'm familiar with the state of Ohio, where if you do a lot of community work while you're in prison, it'll bring your sentence down. So I think it's a good idea. And the other thing is invest savings in community health. So definitely if you're in Ohio, issue number 1, support that. We really appreciate that if you do. I know people are like, oh, why should I vote? Fuck voting. But let me just say this to you. There are people out there that go out of their way to prevent people from voting. I mean, think about that. They make all these laws and policies to try to prevent people, particularly people of color in the black and brown communities. They try to keep you from voting. So if they're trying to do all that, obviously voting counts. So come out there, people in Ohio, vote issue 1. Word. I'm a couple days late on this, but it is the birthday of the late, great Jack the King Kirby. That was on August 28th. So as of this recording, it's been a couple of days. But really, quite honestly, we wouldn't have all the comic book movies that we enjoy watching and discussing if it wasn't for people like Jack Kirby. He helped create a lot of the dope stuff like Thor, Fantastic Four, the X-Men, like all those characters he helped create, the Avengers, just things that we, you know, Captain America, like we go on and on. He co-created them with Stan Lee. Like, there's a big debate on, you know, who created what and how much of it they created, but he was the guy that drew those characters back in the day. So also, if you've seen Thor Ragnarok, pretty much a lot of the background stuff, everything that you see there is because of him, Jack Kirby, all those things. There's a really dope book y'all should check out, is Black Kirby by John L. Jennings, and I forgot the other brother's name, but it's a really dope book. You check it out, and it's influenced by a lot of Jack Kirby stuff. Also, Jack Kirby created Black Panther. Like, that was his creation. Like, yeah, a lot of people don't know that. On Jungle Action, that was all Jack Kirby. So definitely, like, a lot of people didn't know that. So I wanted to throw that out there. But once again, happy Born Day to you. Peace. We talked about this in the last episode of Where My Killer Tape At. You know that it's the 20th anniversary of Cowboy Bebop, which, once again, the #1 anime of all time ever. I will fight you in the street for it. To celebrate that, our folks from Her Royal Airship Ashanti and the Midwest Black Speculative Fiction Alliance are going to be celebrating that event on September 29th in Cincinnati, Ohio. All the proceeds will go to Melodic Connections. It's a Cincinnati-based nonprofit that offers music therapy lessons to individuals with special needs. It's going to be at Withrow High School. Again, that's in Cincinnati, Ohio. And the tickets are $25 in advance, $35 at the door. Now, I know a lot of y'all like, oh, snap, what's going to happen? Well, they're going to have a lot of jazz artists from Cincinnati, Columbus, and, of course, Dayton, you know, Gem City. So come through. It's a great event. So these jazz artists are going to be taking music from Cowboy Bebop score, which is actually one of the reasons why I love that anime. For those of you that can't make it, what we're asking you to do is take the Cowboy Bebop challenge and hashtag Cowboy Bebop. And if you could go onto the website, and I'm going to put it in my show notes, you go onto the website and you could actually purchase a ticket and donate it to a local student. I think it's a good way to introduce young people to jazz and also celebrate Cowboy Bebop, and, you know, have a chance to talk about, you know, anime with people of color. So we're going to be over there. So come through. If you can, please donate a ticket. Thank you. I wasn't going to talk about this, but I think I should. You know, we all saw the funeral. Well, I saw parts of it. I wasn't able to see the whole thing, even though everybody at work was watching it. But it was a long funeral for Aretha Franklin, the late great diva Aretha Franklin. And wow, you know, some people came up there and they sang. But I think one thing was that I can't remember the name of the bishop, but we saw when Ariana Grande came up there, and that bishop was rubbing up on her. And when I say rubbing up, I don't mean to be funny. I don't mean to, like, disregard her experience. But the last week, I spent a lot of time, well, the last couple of days, excuse me, I spent a lot of time convincing some of my male friends that what he did was inappropriate. And because a lot of them didn't see a problem with it. And we ended up, in one of my classrooms, we ended up talking about body language, and we ended up talking about consent. Particularly the part about body language, right? Because, and for example, I'm gonna give you an example. I'm a hugger. I like to hug people, but I usually ask for their consent. I had to learn how to do that, you know, because there was a time I just hugged you. Hey, I'm a hugger, and I just grab people, and I realized that I couldn't do that, even though my intention was wrong. My intentions were good. I'm sorry, my intentions were good. I still have to get consent, and I think that a lot of us fail to realize that. We're gonna talk about consent later on, but anywho's. If you look at the video, and I had to point this out to people, I had to say, check this out. Like my male friend, you know, I'm going to say a good portion of my male friends. I had to say, look at how he's grabbing her, right? And if you see how he's grabbing her, he's grabbing her breasts, right? Then he's like pulling her towards him. You know, you can clearly see, if you look at her body language, Ariana Grande's body language, you can see that she's trying to move away. You know, you could tell that she's uncomfortable. She's like really like leaning, and trying to move away from him. But it's one of those things where, you know, I understand her situation, because it was like a funeral, and imagine if she had got bold. You know, imagine she's like, yo, what you doing, son? Like, it just, even though he was in the wrong, 100% in the wrong, it would have looked kind of crazy up there. So it's funny, because I saw his non-apology, excuse me, And I think I need to talk about how to do it. I talked about this before, how to do an apology. It's not an apology. But what bothered me the most is that a lot of people didn't think he did anything wrong. Again, you got to look at the body language. You have to really pay attention to that. You have to really look at Ariana Grande and see that she was uncomfortable. But even if she was cool with it, he still had to get consent. And I think that's the thing that people are not paying attention to. Plus, it was wrong. He grabbed the breast on national TV. And I think people are failing to realize that. They're like, outside of the discussions about the church, outside of discussions about the respectability politics, outside of the discussion about what she was wearing, we can go on and on about that. But it was a fact that I had to sit there and point out to people that she was uncomfortable. For this Labor Day weekend, I definitely want to shout out Geoffrey Owens. He was on the Cosby Show, and someone had I guess they videoed him or took a picture of him while he was working at Trader Joe's, and then a bunch of people ran with it, and people were joking him and clowning him and shaming him online. And y'all, like, people really trip me out with that shaming stuff. Like, y'all see the economy, y'all see how shit is out here. You know what I'm saying? Our people's out here struggling. We struggling. We don't really got time to like do stuff like that, like shame people for working a 9 to 5. And let me just say this: I know a lot of actors that they work 9 to 5, like that's and they want to act full time, but it's currently their side hustle. A lot of us are struggling artists. I mean, look, I do this podcast. I would love to do this podcast full time, but the things ain't there yet. You know what I mean? So like, I got a regular 9 to 5. So I just don't understand why y'all be shaming people. If anything, you need to be blaming the capitalist system that we live in that forces a lot of us to work 2 jobs or work a regular 9 to 5 and then have our side hustle. What's up with that? Also, I want to talk about consent, but not in the usual fashion that we talk consent. I'm talking about social media pictures. Like, some of y'all think it's cute to take a picture of somebody and then post it on the interwebs. Like, no, it's not cute. You know what I mean? I've seen some of y'all take pictures of people out in the street looking, not too ready for work, and indisposed, drunk, wilding out. And y'all take their pictures and you post it online without their consent. That's actually not cool, man. None of y'all would like it if somebody snapped a picture of you and then when you're not in your best and then take it and post it online. Like, that shit is whack, man. And again, it's all about consent. If you don't got consent, then you don't need to be doing all that. Ask people first, then ask if you could put it online. Take a picture first and ask if you could put it online. I know people are like, oh, but if I was to do that, and then some of y'all would even be like, well, what about when the police pull me over, whatever? Fuck that. The police, like, you got to put them on video. That's the only time shit gets done is if you put it on video. And that's not even half the time. Stuff don't get done. But it's better you have it on video so that everybody knows what went down, because the police will lie about it. Other than that, before you post people's stuff online, get some consent. I can see if they're doing something dope, you know what I mean? Like if they doing a dope dance move or whatever, you see them get down. But when y'all see people out there and they're not their full, complete selves and they acting a fool, that don't mean you know what I'm saying? You take a picture and record it and put it online, right? So if I see a homeless person who's drunk or whatever and they out there wilding out, it's not my right to take a picture of that person and then post it online. Like, come on, man. Who raised y'all? You know what I'm saying? Did y'all raised by wolves or something? Yo, as of this recording, your boy has been buried. They had his funeral and everything. Y'all wild, man. Y'all like really wild. Like, as soon as John McCain passed away, the train took off and they already reinvented who that man is, right? They already talked about how he was polite, how he was a statesman, how he was a maverick. Well, he always tried to put himself off as a maverick. I know people are like, oh, don't speak ill of the dead, and it's one of those things where, why do we do this? Like, why do we revise history so quickly? Like what? Don't get me wrong. White supremacy trumps all, right? So I get that. But why are we so complicit in that? Why are we so fast to be like, yeah, he was a great guy, to talk about the good things? And I often hear, like, particularly around really bad individuals, and they die, and people come out and be like, hey, this person did this to me. We're always like, well, now's not the time. Now's the time to talk about how bad this person was. And then we allow them to get away with those crimes, even in death, right? So here's a man who claimed to be a maverick, and he was not a maverick. Right? He was a run-of-the-mill Republican, right? Who went out his way to, not only write racist policy, but support racist policies that affect black and brown people. But somehow we are ready to, make him a hero. He's a veteran, true indeed, he's a veteran. But I think a lot of times when we look at veterans as like these godlike figures who made the ultimate sacrifice sometimes. Veterans don't make the ultimate sacrifice. People who've died in combat, we say make the ultimate sacrifice, but we do say that veterans make a huge sacrifice. I mean, it's crazy. Like when I admit to people that I'm a Navy veteran, the knee-jerk reaction of people jumping up to shake my hand and thank me for my service. It's amazing. I mean, you don't even know what I did in the Navy, right? But that being said, it's just wild to watch that whole thing in the media play and how a lot of us jumped to defend him. He wasn't like the nicest guy, and I think a lot of us get caught up in that too. Oh, he was very polite, and my mom used to always say that you shouldn't get kudos for being nice, right? And you could be the most polite person and still support racist policy. That doesn't make you a better human being, right? I was supposed to bring this up in last week's episode of Where My Killer Tape At, and I did not. So I apologize for my brothers and sisters behind the wall. Since August 21st, there has been a nationwide prison strike. It ends September 9th. So right now it's currently on its 11th. It was 12th date. And pretty much they're protesting several things. Shout out to all the people behind the wall that are doing this. Some of them are doing it in different ways, staying in their cells, going on hunger strikes, just various ways of doing it. And I just want everybody to know that it's not something that just happened. I think a good place you can go to find out about it is, and I'm gonna put in the show notes, prison strike, mpl5.blackblogs.org. It's a concerted effort. People are putting it together. And I think it's important that you support it. Here's some of the demands. Immediate improvements to the conditions of prisons and prison policies that recognize the humanity of imprisoned men and women. I used to work in a prison, and the conditions are horrible. They are terrible. And, the people that are, in there, they complain about it consistently. And oftentimes, all the time, they're ignored. I remember seeing, when I worked at a prison, I remember seeing the people in the back in the kitchen pulling out bags of chicken that said not fit for human consumption. It just blew my mind. Like I was just like, wow, like that is insane, right? And the second demand is an immediate end of prison slavery. All persons in prison in any place of detention under the United States jurisdiction must be paid the prevailing wage in their state or territory for their labor. Yes, prisoners do work. They earn a wage. I know when I worked in the state of Ohio, the people that are working were getting about, sometimes they were getting like 50 cents an hour, sometimes $1 an hour. If you're lucky, I know there's one group we're getting paid $2.25 an hour, which is ridiculous. And then people are going to say things like, oh, but we're already paying for their stuff. And it's just like, stop it, really, like, stop it. And then, there were some people who were like, I don't want to work. And some people told me that if they refused to work, they were put in solitary confinement. Demand number 3, the Prison Litigation Reform Act must be rescinded, allowing prison humans a proper channel to address grievances and violations of their rights. There's in many states, there's a lot of policies that like kind of like narrow the legal power that prisoners have. So for example, you could place an appeal within 30 days, or you have X amount of time, you have X amount of appeals, et cetera, et cetera. That's just an example. Particularly grievances against like staff and stuff like that. There's like a narrow window of time. And we can go on and on about that. Number 4, the Truth in Sentencing Act and the Sentencing Reform Act must be rescinded so that imprisoned humans have a possibility of rehabilitation and parole. No human shall be sentenced to death by incarceration or serve any sentence without the possibility of parole. A lot of it is that, particularly for black and brown people, there's a disparity in sentencing, a racial disparity in sentencing, where black and brown people do more time than white folks. So that's something that needs to be addressed. 5, an immediate end to racial overcharging, over-sentencing, and parole denials of black and brown humans. Black humans shall no longer be denied parole because the victim of the crime was white, which is a particular problem in the southern states. And we just talked about that. Number 6, an immediate end to the racist gang enhancement laws targeting black and brown humans. We know that if you're somebody who's identified as a member of a gang, they treat you very differently. They want you to do this thing that's called debriefing, which is pretty much snitching on all your colleagues. What ends up happening is there's that gang member is put in danger. So I had a friend who got locked up, and because he was identified as a gang member, they try to keep him in there as long as possible. And then he had to do a writ of habeas corpus. So it's crazy. 7, no imprisoned humans shall be denied access to rehabilitation programs at their place of detention because they're labeled as a violent offender. If you're labeled as a violent offender, you get fewer privileges than someone who isn't. Number 8, state prisons must be funded specifically to offer more rehabilitation services. That's across the board. Number 9, Pell Grants must be reinstated in all U.S. states and territories. We do know that if you're convicted of a drug crime, you are not eligible for Pell Grants. The voting rights of all confined citizens serving prison sentences, pretrial detainees, and so-called ex-felons must be counted. Representation is demanded. All voices count. Most states, if you are convicted of a felony, you no longer have voting rights, and you have to do something to get reinstated legal rights. There's only a few states that give you your voting rights back as soon as you are released, but most of them do not. So there you have it, ladies and gentlemen. Please support the prison strike. Again, I'm going to have some more information in the show notes. Peace. So for my book club, we finally finished. I finished because we meet today later on as of this recording. Angie Thomas's The Hate U Give. It's a really dope book. It's funny because I was kind of skeptical because everybody read it. I think I'm like one of the only people on the planet that didn't read it. They're about to make a movie about it. And it's spelled The Hate U Give, and U is spelled with just a U. It's a rip off of, not a rip, why did I say it like that? They're using Tupac's Thug Life definition. The hate you give little infants fucks everybody. So there's a lot of Tupac references in the book, which I think is dope. I think man, in literature, you see a lot of people who take poems, lines, and stuff like that from different artists and poets, and they put it into their writing, and it really makes a good storyline. I mean, it kind of like makes. She kind of sort of like makes Tupac like another character in it, like a character is like watching over them. Anyway, they're going to make it into a major motion picture. My book club picked it. So at first I was skeptical. Again, I'm always skeptical when everybody likes something. I'm always like, why does everybody like this book? It won a National Book Award. But it's really good. Like I started reading it. It's a fast read because I got it kind of late. I got it like a week before my book club, and I read it in like 5 days. Like it was like that riveting. I love Angie Thomas's writing. It's very simple. It's to the point. She does not leave any plot holes. I mean, man, it's like everything just fits together neatly. The plot twists are at the right moment. And they're not like, because you know how usually a plot twist is like, whoa, comes away from left field. You can kind of like, I'm not saying it's predictable, but it's like, oh, okay, I see now. I love the fact that, I mean, and she is just intersectional as fuck. I think that's why I like it the most. It's very intersectional. She deals with police brutality. She deals with school disparities. She deals with access to healthcare. She deals with limited access to healthcare. She deals with racism. She deals with systemic racism. She deals with the prison industrial complex. I mean, she deals with like oh my God, sexism, like she deals with all that stuff, white privilege, and I think it's like you can probably make about 1,000 discussions of this book alone. It's big, but you read it quickly. So I'm glad we picked it, because a lot of times I'm skeptical about what choices, and maybe I should let my book club vote it, but they did vote for it. I try to be as democratic as possible, and I'm glad we did it. I can't wait to discuss it. It's really dope. Highly recommend it if you get a chance to read it. Word.
Yes.
Peace party people. Today's health segment, we're talking about trying new things. I know that for a lot of us, we work different kind of workouts, right? We might be bicyclists. I used to be a bicyclist. I need to get back on it. I got to work on my bike. And I used to be out. I used to be like, 10 miles every other day, sometimes 12 miles every other day. I loved it. I enjoyed it. And, bicycling is something I did off and on. It's funny because for some reason I would buy used bikes and they always get stolen. Why is that? That's neither here nor there. So I always ask people that part of your workout routine, if you want to, I think one of the best things you could do is you can try something new. Check YouTube. YouTube is a good resource about trying new things. Yoga is really good. Yoga is very popular. I know a lot of people that do it. I know people that do it, well into a ripe old age. So, try something new to help on your repertoire. It's just a good idea to mix things up. And you never know, it might awaken something new that you might want to enjoy. So that's the health idea for this one, So try something new. Check it out, see how you like it. If you don't like it, it's fine. If you're already at a gym, a lot of times these gyms will have like extra fitness classes you can take. They might let you do the first one for free, like a trial, and then the rest you got to pay for or just add on to your monthly fee. So check it out. You never know what you might like. Ask a friend or go with a friend, right? It's strength in numbers. Go with a friend, see what they say. They might be doing something that you haven't tried yet, and I think it's really good. I love the fact that I go on YouTube or I can go locally and somebody always got something really dope to add on, like trap yoga. I think that's really dope. Cycling. Just try it. You never know what you might like. Swimming. I have a friend who's taking swimming classes and she's enjoying it, and it's a good workout for her. So definitely try something new, party people.
McCarthy, heavy on the list. You blink my ice ring, John Green. Yeah, that's strong.
How to approach women. We're going to talk a little bit about consent again. I know I brought this up in the previous segment of how to approach women, but consent is important. Under no circumstances you should be touching that young lady. Period. That young woman. Period. Point blank. End of story. Like, I see that happen a lot. I see a lot of dudes grab women by their arms, by their elbow, or whatever, or, I'm trying to get her attention. Nah, man, it's not like that. Again, and I think it's funny because when we talk about consent, we never really talk about like empathy, right? Like, you just wouldn't want nobody touching you. Like, I wouldn't want nobody touching me, like nobody walking up from behind and touching me or grabbing me. Like, I'll be, what I'm saying? Like, don't get me wrong, like, if my partner touches me, grabs me or whatever, like, hey, I need to get your attention, or one of my children does it, that's a different story. But I don't want a total stranger to just walk up and just grab me. So you just got to think about it like that. This is such a violation. And, for a lot of us, we just don't like it. I know I don't like it. So I try to put myself in the other person's shoes if I need to get their attention. Unless it's like a life situation, life or death situation, right? But other than that, under no circumstances should you be touching people. So when you're trying to get someone's attention, if you can't get their attention, then you can't get their attention. But let's avoid touching people, because a lot of people, I get a lot of DMs about that, and I'm like, nah, that's not cool. And it's like, what is this? It's a party, and it's late, and it's dark, and there's a lot of music, and then there's just so many ways to get somebody's attention. I've done it. You know what I'm saying? I needed to do it to get a hold of people across the room. So if they could pay attention, then I'm pretty sure the person you're trying to approach can do it. So, I know people are like, well, what does that have to do with how to approach women? A lot of women tell me that, they don't like that. That is not cool. So I get a lot of DMs about that as well. So don't do it. It's not cool. And you know, some people say, well, I'm not grabbing her butt. No, it doesn't matter. It's like, some people just don't want, a lot of us don't like to get touched. So I think when you do these things, try to really employ empathy when you're in these kind of situations. So I just wanted to do that. I know that may not be like a huge setup or whatever, but it's something that I think needs to be addressed, because a lot of the things that I've noticed when men approach women, a lot of it is borderline harassment. So just wanted to touch on that again. Word.
It's all a game. It's all a game.
You know, this is a special shout out as a former educator. Just want to shout out my fellow educators out there around the country. I know in most places in the United States, after Labor Day weekend, school starts. I know here in the Midwest, school already started for us, but most people go back to school right after Labor Day. So definitely to the educators, man, that are underpaid, understaffed, overly qualified, right? Because in some places where you live at, educators have to get like a master's degree. They have to get like all this special training. They got to update that training. They got to get a special license. They got to take a test, take a special license. They got to do all this stuff. And they're still underpaid and undervalued. So this one goes out to y'all. I know it doesn't mean a lot. For any of my educators that are listening, the deal is still, if I see you in the street, a cup of coffee is on me. If you don't like coffee, then tea, you know what I'm saying? So that deal still goes on no matter where I'm at and when I'm traveling. Definitely hit me up, and I got you on that. Because y'all really you're just not loved enough. And I think y'all put in a lot of work. Y'all put up with a lot of crap from the staff, administration, from the media, from parents. We can go on and on. So this one goes out to y'all. Love y'all. Y'all still doing y'all thing that are out there. Word. Peace. Yo, shout out to the homie Sean Shot the other day. He had an event. He hosted an event here in Dayton. It was pretty dope. A lot of creators out there doing our thing. We're talking about issue 1. That's why I came up with the discussion on issue 1 today. So shout out to him. Word is born. And shout out to the Ohio Student Alliance out here still doing their thing, man. Yo, we love y'all. We see y'all. We salute you. Definitely. Shout out to my man, Humanity Critic, man. We used to talk all the time. We talked the other day. He got some writing coming for y'all. Yo, I love you and miss you, bruh. Back from my blogging days. And that's all you have it here in episode number 43 of Where My Killer Tape At. Before we bounce out, like I said, a lot of the things that we talked about on the show are going to be in the show notes, the links and everything where you need to get that information. On issue number 1, on the prison strike that's going on right now. Also, a lot of people have been asking me about, speaking, panel discussions and stuff like that. I'm ready for that. I'm ready to be booked. Well, I've always been ready, man. Even before I had the podcast. Some of y'all know me. I could talk about hip hop culture. I could talk about b-boying. I could do workshops on b-boying or breakdancing. And I can do workshops on capoeira. I also can do workshops on, social justice education, how to write lesson plans according to that. If you want to talk to me about that, let me know what's up. You can hit me up at DanTresOmi@gmail.com for bookings. Make sure in the subject line you put bookings on there so I know what you're talking about. I do get a lot of emails, so definitely do that. Again, DanTresOmi@gmail. Also, if you want to continue the discussion, please go online and put the hashtag Where My Killer Tape At. Killer is spelled Killa. Tape At, word is born. You can find me on the Twitters, always on Twitter, at DanTresOmi, DanTresOmi, or you can find me at Omi's Podcast. That's the official Twitter page of this podcast, at OMIS Podcast. Once again, thank y'all. I love y'all. I appreciate y'all. And until next time, peace.